your memory impairment showing itself? How is your thinking changing? Are you having difficulty with judgment, et cetera? So, most employers will accommodate and should accommodate mild cognitive impairment. Or are you being affected in many areas of your life and work being just one of them? What are your strengths and weaknesses in relation to cognitive functioning, memory, cognitive flexibility, speed of information processing, et cetera? If your employer made some changes, could you do the job? Okay, and when you say do the job, can you do the essential functions of the job, the key parts of the job that the employer needs? How do you feel about you working in your current job? Do you want to stay, or does the job affect you not just physically, but cognitively and emotionally? That's another consideration. What is most important to you right now? How do you want to spend your time? Okay, so say you want to work with your employer and you're not sure what kind of assistance might be available. Well, we are available through Neurological Vocational Rehab right here at Harborview, and we're supported chiefly by the State Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. So our website is nvsrehab.org, but every state vocational rehabilitation office is located strategically around the state. So in King County, there might be 10 offices. And so given COVID, you're going to have to call and they'll send you kind of an intake form electronically and you'll have to resubmit that, okay? But you want to find one that's closest to you for all kinds of reasons in terms of building a relationship. And they then will refer you back to us. So you could just call us first if you'd like to, 206-744-9130 or the nvsrehab.org, and we'll hook you up with a local office. The second thing you can do, if you want accommodations, that's the key thing, and you're working, and you might not qualify for state vocational rehabilitation because of your cash flow, you could visit the Northwest Americans with Disabilities Act, Northwest ADA Center, and their website is nwadaCenter.org, which is northwestadacenter.org. Well, the last thing you can do is you can visit the Job Accommodation Network. So the Department of Labor funds a job accommodation network at West Virginia University, which is available 24/7. And I recently had an issue which they helped me resolve. What was really cool is I called them and I left them a web-based message. And the response was within 3-4 hours, which I think is fabulous. So they gave me, here's some written strategies. And then verbally they said, well, it could be some, issues here or there, but they're available. And we've used them, constantly. So in other words, if we can't accommodate your issue, the cognitive issue, we have a technical assistance person who works for the State Division of Vocational Rehabilitation who can be very helpful. But if that person can't do it, we then go to the Department of Labor people at the University of Washington, at the West Virginia University, and they will help us out. Okay, if you feel you're being discriminated against, in other words, you feel you can do the job, the essential functions of the job, but the company won't budge. And one thing we're kind of finding is, when things get, in this COVID environment, when things get economically kind of tight, companies can be less willing to accommodate, but they have to. If they have 15 employees or more, you have the right to ask reasonable accommodation in relation to the essential functions of the job. Can you do the essential functions of the job with or without or with reasonable accommodation? Okay. So, but for example, that's not going to, they're not going to lower productivity level. Okay. They expect us. The key thing is so many customer service requests, answered in a day. Okay. Then in most cases, they're not going to drop that prerequisite, any substantial degree. So, but how you accomplish it might be another thing. The assistance they give you might be another thing. Okay. What you can do in terms of strategies, what you can do in terms of assistive technology, in terms of computer-based aids, that's the key thing. So some people don't have to consider, they have difficulties with quick judgment or aspects of memory, etc. But they're on a job where they're kind of shored up, okay? So I had a referral actually from Mary Grace's center, where the person was kind of had a very significant political position, and still had some reasonable judgment, but a lot of different kind of cognitive difficulties. But his staff and team could basically maintain him, okay, and support him. And sometimes that happens. What also can happen is you have a very circumscribed single difficulty, which might be memory, okay? Your judgment, your decision-making is still excellent. And so this was another case, and it wasn't the city of Seattle, but it was a port commissioner, okay, in a city. And basically the staff did all the prep work, okay, and kind of teed up not just this commissioner, but the other commissioners, okay, to make the decision. And this person was being very responsible and said, you know, I'm not sure I'm worried about the job. I said, can you make those decisions? And our point was, on the day of, I can read the pros and cons and I can make that decision. I said, well, as long as you can do that and you're not getting negative feedback from your colleagues, we're good to go, okay? So, but then some people say, you know, I can't, I'm in trouble doing this aspect of the job. So, and you're gonna get this material. So I'm gonna give you highlights. We're not gonna go tedious way, go through each spot. But number one is, and a assistive technologist person trained me in this. If you look at the Americans with Disabilities Act, there are pages of accommodation, and you just kind of flood, you get overwhelmed. But if you think of it in three ways, can the job duties be changed, okay? Can the workstation be modified to make the person more effective and efficient? Or can we use some type of assistive technology or device, all right? So, you know, but those are the basic, you know, three categories. So I'll now give you some examples. And we have an epilepsy self-management program, and there's one chapter relating to cognition, specifically to memory, speed of information processing, and attention. And we use examples. So number one is changing how you do things, okay? Breaking complex tasks into chunks. This is the aspect of, this is the chunk I'm gonna do in terms of this function, okay? Working when your energy level is high and fatigue is low. For example, if I've got to do an article or a book chapter, something like that, I try to tackle that early in the morning. I try to do the 7 to 9 on that, 7 to 9:30, because my energy's up, my thinking's clear, the coffee's working, everything is good. Another thing is to schedule or limiting phone time. Okay, so you're working on a task, and and the deal there is you don't respond to other emails coming in or your phone. You know, so there's a set amount of time. I'm not going to respond to external stimuli. Okay, you're going to be able to work on that chunk of what you want to get done by 9 o'clock. The other thing is when you get pulled away, because this is very, I'm picking some of the common things I see. People get pulled away from their computer and they kind of forget where they were, you know. So the easy thing is to just leave a sticky note on the screen. Okay, this is what I was working on. This is what I got to go back to, okay? So let's give me an example. So we had an accounting manager of a statewide company, and this was not an older person with some aspect of dementia. This was a post-traumatic brain injury. So she had difficulty with divided attention and speed of information processing. And she just wasn't getting things done. She was really an accounting manager. So what we did simply here is we changed how she did things. So she came to work early, 7 o'clock, no phone calls or emails till 9:30, okay? Then we opened the floodgates, 9:30 to 11:30, okay? She's very communicative and on top of things, catching up. Then she returns to accounting work, And in this case, because she would fatigue, and in fatigue, the key things that affect your functioning, your cognitive functioning, are fatigue and anxiety. Okay, anxiety. The more anxious you are, so you got to work on your anxiety, your mindfulness, your cognitive behavioral therapy, sometimes the medication, because that can account for 25% of your cognitive functioning. Not depression. Depression only accounts for 5%. Okay, so you can be unhappy and still getting things done, but anxiety really does provide a problem. So then she would go to her car and take a nap. Okay, she would nap for 20 minutes, half an hour. Okay, come back and get back on task. And for 2 to 3 o'clock, she'd then open the floodgates, emails, calls, and she'd leave early then. She'd leave at 3:30 or so. Okay, which is great because she'd have to jump on it. She'd be on the road earlier. She'd get home earlier. And what she'd do is she'd take some simple kinds of things with her, which would be review of travel expenses, something like that. Okay, so that's just how she modified her day. The next category is changing your workstation. And one of the things I've seen the most is people in, kind of an open work setting, with minor separations and a lot of traffic. I had one person who was in charge of travel for a company whose cubicle was right at the top of the stairs as employees came up to the second floor. And it was kind of, hey, Jack, how you doing? On and on. And, so we had to get him out of there. In some cases, we can find a private office. This helps. So much of memory is attention. It's getting it in. If you don't get it in, you're not going to be able to remember it. So we want to minimize distraction, get you in a corner or a private office. Organizing or structuring the work activity. I'll give you an example. There's another person with I think a stroke, and he was assembling bicycles. And we sent out the assistive technologist. And what would happen, there was so many steps in assembling the front wheel of the bicycle and so many tools. And so what he was doing was he'd do that step and he put the tool over here somewhere. Okay, so the organization kind of fell apart. So what our assistive technologist did was to color code each tool, okay, with the next step. So certain type of wrench, that's step 3, that goes into step 3 into the little cubicle, okay? And then you take out 4 color coded, so which is color coded to the box in sequence, and that's all was needed. $28 for that little wooden box and a little tape to color code things. And the last one, this is really common, is minimizing mess, minimizing disorganization. Papers all over the place, and a lot of folks, when they start having memory problems and organizational problems, the mess just doubles and triples, and then everything, the whole system falls apart. The third category is memory aids and assistive technology. Okay, now some of these memory aids are not fancy. I mean, many of us use a memory book or a diary. That's the most simple thing. I use it every day. When I do that, I put an asterisk next to things I have to do for the day. Okay, the asterisk would be like my A list. Okay, and then if I get to the B's, great. But I try to get the A's, those with asterisks, done. Okay. On a maybe more complex level or assistive level, actually, you lose your Outlook calendar, you lose Evernote as an organizer. There's different software programs you can use, and you can review these with an assistive technologist, which could be a DVR employee. Okay, the university has an ADA, Assistive Technology Center, where they'll provide that service, or you can go to the Job Accommodation Network, and they'll recommend the product. They'll give you the cost. Okay, they'll compare it versus other products. So if you need something in relation to organization and or memory or something that's more efficient, so to help you with speed of information processing, those are resources. And it's very common that you don't use just one of these 3 categories. Okay, so I'll give you another example. We had an IT phone customer specialist, and he had difficulties responding to customer service requests by phone due to both memory and speed of information processing issues. And they were associated with seizure history and medications. The other problem here was, which is, I'll just bring this up because it's a very important point. You may be in a job where there's no metrics, okay? And metrics could, example, you'll handle 22 customer service requests a day, and your average time should be 8 minutes, okay? And there were no metrics. And what was happening, he was asking other people questions, okay? But when we actually went to the metrics, he was low average. And with some of these modifications, he became high average, okay? So a lot of times it's, let's get to the metrics. And when you start using terms like metrics and job efficiency, a lot of HR people, human resources people, kind of get it and start thinking, uh-oh, this could be an ADA issue, or and they get serious. So it's important. Now, I don't want to make the negotiation with the employer is certainly not always adversarial. In many cases, I just had one with the Lincoln County over in Port Townsend, and they did everything. They absolutely did everything. And the gentleman had a stroke, and it was very complex. And it was a job that evolved every day. It wasn't one. He was doing kind of geographical systems work, and it was very complex. So a lot of them are very, very good. But so this fellow, what we did is we did a paid coworker at lunchtime. So we paid a coworker. We got money from Safe Folk Rehab, and we took part of that and paid the coworker his or her hourly salary to work with him 2 lunchtimes a week. So he would better get a sense of the most frequently asked questions, the most common problems. The coworker highlighted the manual as to the key things that he should study on the weekend so he'd get more efficient and be able to recall this more quickly. And the third thing is he used Evernote software for prioritization and organization, okay? And that was extremely helpful because you look at his priorities, get things done, and check off the A's for the day, okay? So those are the 3 categories. Give you a couple of examples. But I'm going to end with a new one, and this one was actually this week and is still in progress, and this has taken a lot of time. So this is a fellow, again, I would say memory is an issue to a degree. Attention certainly is an issue, and speed of information processing. So when he gets, say he has to learn a new computer language, okay, that's a challenge. Okay, he's going to take more time than another person, and so that even with certain kind of Google Docs or cloud apps, etc. So that's a problem. But the company had him on a performance improvement plan, which means he had 90 days to improve in 4 areas. One was simply getting your business credit card bill paid on time. Well, we took that off the list. That was easy. But the second, the 2, 3, and 4 were attention to detail, a quicker escalation, and transparency with the supervisor in terms of meeting customer requests, and then also being prepared for meetings, okay? And so we're going after each one of these. For example, now he's going to have an app on his phone that reminds him half an hour before the meeting that is coming up. He's going to go through his material for the meeting, and in fact, kind of review it, time it maybe a little bit. So being prepared, big problem. That's the biggest problem with him. We came up with a Google Doc sheet so that the supervisor and he can see where he is in terms of responding to each customer request at the same time. That's good. Attention to detail can be a problem. And one of the problems is, and this is kind of a COVID problem, and you may experience this too. See, I get up and I come in the office here, and what used to be a normal day is no longer normal, okay? Everything's evolving, okay? And I'm being asked to do things that, in fact, I have never done before, right? And so in his case, he's on this performance improvement plan, but what they're doing is they're kind of add-ons. you know, I'd like to suggest this other thing for you to do, all right? And it's like, okay. And now they're forgetting that he has this problem with speed of information processing. So a new division leader comes in due to COVID and says, okay, now these people are also going to be team leaders, okay? This fellow's not prepared to be a team leader. He can't, you know, do problem solving exercises with his team. He can't respond that fast. He can't respond to the cues, external cues. He can't think through that fast. His learning curve is slow. So we have to watch the creep, okay? So that's the one thing that one of these things that I was like experiencing with them is initially I wanted to come in a little bit more assertive and let's go ADA, and then I realized, boy, these people are reeling, okay? The HR person and the supervisor, every day they're trying to figure it out. So we have to be aware of that. And the second thing is, in terms of accommodations, we need to be very specific. For example, you can't give him too many new things to do for the week. If you do, be very specific that this is the priority, and let him tell you by what time he can achieve it while still maintaining his performance improvement points. Because otherwise he's going to be pulled away and he's going to divide his attention. And the client is very kind of compliant and acquiescent. They tell him to do more things. Sure, that's fine. Well, it isn't. He goes home, his anxiety spills over. The anxiety is so bad, he and his wife are sleeping in separate rooms. It's crazy. So he talks to his wife and go back to them and say, I'm sorry, you know, I can't get that done. Is there one single priority? I'll focus on that. I can do that. Maybe I can't do it by next Tuesday, but I can do it by Friday, you know? And so we need that kind of thing. But one of the things I left with to kind of conclude is that both the client and the company representatives, as we're approaching accommodation issues and considerations, they both need our empathy. This is a very difficult time period. You know, it's nothing like I've experienced in my job. I was drafted years ago in Vietnam, and every day we'd have to get up and figure things out. And I was with the psychiatric team. We worked from Da Nang to the DMZ. It was a lot of flexibility, but I haven't experienced that kind of apprehensions, changes in role and function for years. And now we're in the midst of it. So I think everybody has to be respectful and considerate and try to understand the other person's point of view while still getting your accommodation points across. Okay, so it's a little bit of an art form, and our own learning curve is still progressing here, I would say. But anyway, I think that's the key points I'd like to make today.